hey, would you like to know how everything works? Would you like to know how the universe operates? None of us really manifest the same way. Everyone also has a unique way of manifesting your desires.
It literally showed the purpose of my life, and that's kind of crazy. Christoffer Appelgren is a spiritual entrepreneur, gene keys guide, and digital creator devoted to helping others unlock their soul's blueprint and design a life of deep inner alignment. And today we talk about gene keys.
So that is the activation sequence, kind of like activating your power, activating your purpose. And in there you have 4 different gene keys. It's a transmission of not only how you function in this life, but also on a soul level, how you can continually transform and transcend.
How do gene keys compare to human design?
Yeah, the best way I like to describe it is even between all 3 of them, like astrology, human design, and gene keys.
You said gene keys is a clarity tool to reconnect with your internal compass. What did you mean by that?
Yes, great first question. It's truly a clarity tool, the best one I've ever come across so far. And I've been through a couple with the 16 personalities test, Enneagram, numerology, astrology, human design, you name it. But this one is really clarity on a whole nother level. And why is that? It really goes deep into all your patterns, all your unconscious patterns. It might be good and bad, high and low. And in Gene Keys, they name this the shadow patterns. It's basically your fear reactions, that is, where different fear is coming up and kind of self-sabotaging you and bringing fear into the picture with worry, doubt, stress, etc. And that can really, of course, affect you in your decision making in your life or in business or whatever area in life, romantic relationships as well, make you choose one thing over another. And usually we all know that you don't want to make decisions out of a place of fear or your triggers and trauma, but rather you want to take decisions from alignment and your truth, your values, so to speak. And we can go deeper into why this is useful, of course, practically in life.
Well, that's exactly what we are going to be doing today, because I also find these tools incredibly helpful. And I love that you mentioned the 16 personalities test, because, man, I have been through so many different kind of personality tests. The first one I think I ever done was actually like at the end of like my high school years. Then after that I done during my college. And then after that I was still trying to figure out like, who am I, right? Like, what am I supposed to do? And then a friend of mine prepared something for me called human design. And for me, that was already like a personality test on steroids. And I know that human design and gene keys are also very closely related. We are going to talk about that in a second. So these kind of tools immediately shed light on some of the hidden truth about me. And this was better than any personality test I have ever taken in my life. So I understand why entrepreneurs like us are also drawn to tools like this. But if you look at like your experience for yourself and the people that you have helped with in the past, like, why do you think that entrepreneurs should care about diving into gene keys?
As an entrepreneur, you're basically an extension of your business. There's a saying that's true that, you don't have a business problem, you have a personal problem showing up in your business. This is why it's extremely important that you kind of know yourself, you know your values, you know how you function, and Gene Keys is one of the best tools to do so. So one example is like, getting to know yourself of what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. That's like the foundational level, right, of personal development 1.0. But Gene Keys is more, I kind of see it as more like personal development 3.0, in the way that not only does it go through the weaknesses, it goes through, your core wounds that was shaping you from an age between 0 to 7. They call that the spiritual quotient, like your spiritual wound. From 7 to 14 you have an emotional wound, and from 14 to 21 you have an intellectual wound. So this is all how certain patterns are coming up in your life, you know, whether it's spiritual, whether it's emotionally, where, you know, how you feel unsafe, how you don't feel good enough, how you don't feel loved. We're talking about, you know, attachment theories and all of these kind of things coming into the picture with nervous system regulation. But then you also have the intellectual quotient, which is your mindset, your limiting beliefs, how you see the world, how you intellectualize the world. So once you get a clarity on all of these patterns of how you function, you can get a much better understanding of how you can be in alignment with those strengths of yours and get rid of the disturbances of your weaknesses and your shadow patterns. So an analogy might be, you know, you have a river. You might even swim up against the river because you think you need to do it in a certain way, but actually you could swim with the current of the river, with your strengths, with your gifts, so to speak.
Yeah, very interesting. And I can definitely see how like some of these personal development endeavors can directly translate into professional success as well. Because also like so many people that I speak to, they think that they are doing the thing that they are supposed to be doing, but they're still asking the question, am I doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing? And then like, am I doing it in the way that as is the best for me? Like, is this in alignment with myself? When I think about like entrepreneurship in general, like sometimes you're just like, you know, pushing this rock up the hill and this like struggle and pain and torture and all of that, rather than just like trying to navigate the ball easily. Once you already know exactly like what are the things that you can lean on, what are the things that maybe you should outsource, right? So it can really like streamline how you spend your energy and your time on some of these activities. So I know that you are also a business owner. I know that you were also in marketing, entrepreneurship, worked a lot with different clients as well. So how did you discover Gene Keys? Like what was the thing that kind of like draw you into it?
Yeah, so I think like, as for many people, I didn't per se discover or, you know, sought up the Gene Keys. The Gene Keys was more finding me, I would say. So, you know, like 1.5 years ago, I was at this period of my life where I had already worked with a ton of entrepreneurs and building businesses and, yeah, getting good success on a surface level. On the outside, everything looks good. But then on the inside, I felt like something was off. A bit out of alignment, I felt. And I felt a bit lost on why am I not happier and more fulfilled than I am right now? Because for the previous 5 years before that, I had been striving for the classic freedom in every way: financial, location, time freedom, right? And I checked those boxes and I had thought like, oh, amazing, I made it. I'm living in Bali, I'm making great money, I have time freedom also, working few hours a week. But how come I'm now waking up unexcited in the morning and I'm not fulfilled about what I'm doing? I'm not joyful, I'm not excited. So something's off. And that's where I think, you know, in a little bit more spiritual way, I got some nudges from the universe in different ways. It might be things coming up in a mushroom trip, going with like nudging me about astrology and human design. It might have been YouTube videos popping up or several people mentioning similar things. Hey, look into astrology more, human design more. I Ching came up. So I don't know which specific person mentioned this, but someone mentioned Gene Key, and I did a reading. Then went to the genekeys.com website myself and put in my birth details to get my free holographic profile. Checked into that, and as I was reading all my Gene Keys, it was just a yeah, one of those aha moments of, wow, like, how is this possible that some kind of system here is seeing right through me and telling me all the things about myself that I didn't even know, in my, was probably buried deep in my unconscious myself. So yeah, as I was going through gene key after gene key, I saw all of my shadows, and I remembered, thinking back on my life, whether any small event or big event with smaller arguments, bigger fights, breakups, relationships, business partnerships going to hell, you name it, everything would be explainable with those shadows coming through in one way or another. So that's where I realized that, wow, this system is not just one of those personality systems giving you your personality types and your characteristic traits, or even human design for that matter, who kind of talks more about, your energetic vehicle of this is your energy and how your energy works and how you can, in a more tactical way, do certain things in the world depending on your energy. But this is more of a transformational system and even journey where, yeah, the founder Richard Rudd calls it a living transmission, in the way that you're living it. It's a transmission of not only this life, how you function in this life, but also on a soul level, like on a soul's journey, how you can continually transform and transcend from once again, your shadow patterns into your gifts and your higher potential, basically.
Would you consider yourself always someone who has been spiritual in the past?
Definitely not. No, I was the opposite. At least the first 25 years of my life were highly practical, highly analytical. My background was in sports, tennis. Right, I was a tennis athlete on a high level there. So nothing spiritual whatsoever. That chapter probably started a couple months in when I moved to Bali, 2023, and that's just like 2.5 years ago.
I think this is one of the things that I also come across when I speak to some high achieving entrepreneurs, founders, executives, leaders for that matter, because I'm also from tech, SaaS, marketplaces, real estate, like you name it, like that's my background. And then when I present like some of these tools, they're like, oh man, like this is woo-woo. I'm not interested in this kind of things. Like I'm a rational, logical person. So let's talk about some of the things that I can actually like cognitively comprehend, like how this works and like why I should even pay attention to. So what has changed for you? Because it seems like that this tool is still like based on your birthday, right? So like in my understanding, it's almost like related to astrology. Like the only person who asked for my birthday and the day and the time and the location was always like someone who wanted to do like an astrology reading for me. And so this is also based on the same stuff. So I think my question is like, what was that shift for you when you started to believe that, okay, this is actually real? And then you can explain it to yourself rationally as well, that this is not just woo-woo.
Yeah, yeah. Let me see if I can give some examples here that might hit the point here. Shifting my belief from woo-woo to, wow, this is actually real. Now, I had a friend a year ago, and she said a lot of these statements of, hey, you need to learn how to go with the flow. And at that time, that was one of those sentences I go like, oof, cringe, like woo-woo fluff. What do you even mean with that? Going with the flow. Does that mean you don't need to plan? You don't need to strategize? You don't need to, like, you're just gonna wish for luck that things are working out? That's what I was thinking at the time. But then as months went on, maybe a year even, where I was in this period where my business was at a peak, but then all of a sudden I started losing clients and it was going the opposite way. For no reason, I was giving them great results, great service, great performance, and I couldn't even explain. There was no logical explanations for why clients were leaving, basically. And then I was still hustling and working hard, trying to get clients to stay, trying to get new clients. So I was I was back in the hustle mentality a little bit of working hours again. But things were not moving still. And then I was like, I was so exhausted and felt so unmotivated, uninspired, etc., that I decided to like, let me just take a breather and relax and give in to things. I don't care anymore. Let me take 3 months now where I just enjoy. I just focus on whatever feels good to me. So that I did, and yeah, I don't know what people would say about this, but now I had, many, many, many of these experiences where I choose to relax and let go, and things are unfolding way easier, way more effortless. And yeah, if someone goes through that experience, right, of like, oh wow, there's plenty of times where I got evidence now where if I relax and I try to just go with the flow a little bit more, things seems to be becoming easier. Results are increasing, performance, success in different ways, coming more effortless. And yeah, that's when I put two and two together, right, with the jinkies, of looking into what is everything of this saying. Oh, it's saying that one of my shadows is force, one of my shadows is superficiality, etc., etc. And to give a few examples of those shadows, it would have been, I was forcing it there for a while, right? I was trying to knock in a door that was locked and the key was nowhere to be found. Maybe it was meant to be locked for a reason, and there was another door that was to be taken that was open, right? Superficiality. Maybe I'm trying to put on a mask on myself, trying to be better and more capable than I am. Maybe that's how I'm partly coming across on social media now when I'm talking about this is the strategy that you need to use, this is the secret, this is the hack. But realizing that, oh, I can go out of my shadow of force and superficiality and go into my gift of self-assurance, confidence in myself, believing in that I can figure things out no matter what happens, as well as the other gift being strength, which is kind of described as strength doesn't come from power or showing how powerful you are. It's more that you're able to find strength from being in flow, in a flow state, in a place of creativity and working smart. So eventually, enough of these situations and evidence points hit me that this is not woo-woo anymore. I have concrete evidence now that, this is working out way better for me in my life to follow this. That's in alignment uniquely to my patterns, right? My gene keys.
Yeah, and last week you and I had a session about my gene keys, and it kind of like created that very similar feeling when I had my human design profile back in the past, because that was the first time when I encountered this kind of tools, right? So my experience was with human design first before gene keys, and it kind of like gave me the exact same feeling what you were describing, that okay, there is a system that literally sees through me and knows everything about me. And that was kind of like very humbling at the same time, because it literally answered some of the deepest questions that I was asking about myself. And I know that like most people ask these questions about themselves, and it's written there. Like, how is that even possible? You cannot argue with the data. So for me, that kind of like shifted things in me. Like, okay, even if it only came from my birthday, but it's there and it's true, and I know it's true. Like, some of these tools can literally explain like how I like eating, yeah, like how I like interacting. Where do I get my energy from? Is it from people? Is it from like being in a hermit mode? Like how I operate, how I communicate, how I la 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 la. And I was like, wow. Like, I think for me, what it really unlocked was a lot of self-acceptance, because we are living in a world where you continuously compare yourself to others around you, right? Because obviously, like, your ego tries to survive and it tries to see like what's the best way to move forward, and then it can create so much anxiety. But what it did for me, both human design and jinkies, is that it really calmed me down. And then it's like, oh, okay, I was designed in a specific way for a specific purpose. And then, although like I don't know all the intricate details, but that's exactly why we are also having this conversation. So you can maybe explain like some of the stuff, like how it actually works. So before we move on, like deeper into gene keys, I mentioned human design, you mentioned human design. So how do the two things compare? Because to me, it's almost like synonyms to each other, like gene keys, human design, but I understand that there must be a difference between them. So how do gene keys compare to human design?
Yeah, the best way I like to describe it is even between all three of them, like astrology, human design, and gene keys. So you have astrology, everyone is aware that, okay, you give your birthday details there. And it works kind of like more of a cosmic weather report. So think about that at the moment in time that you're born, the planets were aligned in a certain way in the cosmos. And if you believe, I know that planets have energies. So consider that planets have energies and you're born into a sort of like an energy cocktail in a sense. Just like the farmers back in the days were looking, what season are we in? Are we in spring, summer, fall, or winter? You know, is the sun shining or is it raining or is it snowing? The same way can be thought about astrology with the cosmic weather report. What is currently the energies of the planets? Like the external forces on the bigger picture that is influencing everything else, whether it's other people's energies, whether it's animals, whether it's the plants, whether it's the normal weather, whether, all of these things. So that is astrology. Human design, on the other hand, is more about kind of like your vehicle, like your energetic vehicle. So it tells you, human design usually gives a body graph, a visual body graph of you. And you can see where your energies and your chakras are flowing. And it gives an interpretation and description of that in detail, of how your energy works, whether you're a manifesting generator or projector, or reflector, etc. And based on that, you can form a bit of a strategy on how you want to operate in the world. And that is obviously very useful, that, okay, you have a certain energy and most likely that would be useful or most appropriate to use in this way, in accordance to your strength. Gene keys then is built on top of both of these things, and it's built on many more things as well. Besides human design and astrology, it's also built on the I Ching, which is the kind of thousands of years ancient Chinese wisdom. They talk a lot about 64 hexagrams in there, which is like 64 archetypes of human archetypes. So think about 64 different human archetypes, different types of human being, one could say. And it's not a coincidence if you go a little bit, deeper here into spirituality, that there's also a resemblance that we have 64 genetic codons in our DNA. And then if you go into sacred geometry, there's also a lot of hexagons and other geometrical shapes that is based on 64 and the number 8. And yeah, all of these is also related to, if anyone has done numerology and stuff like this as well. And finally, you have the Kabbalion, which is the 7 Hermetic Principles. Some people in the audience might have been reading the book, The Kabbalion. The Universe is Mental. And this is where Richard Rudd, the founder, explained that, when he was 29 years old, I think, he woke up in an elevated state of consciousness for 3 days and 3 nights. And apparently the divine being, Hermes, that created the 7 Hermetic Principles, visited him and asked him, hey, would you like to know how everything works. Would you like to know how the universe operates? And Richard said, yes, I would like to know. And he was able to travel through time and space anywhere he wanted and to find out anything he wanted. And this became the thing, like his life purpose for the next decade, where he tried to take the knowledge he gained, or the experience, the insights, all the truths he gained from this experience, and narrow it down into something human, comprehensible, which became the Gene Keys. So that's a little bit of a backstory on the Gene Keys and why it's very, quite divine in a sense. It's a living transmission, and he calls it himself like an algorithm of incarnation, meaning that it's almost like a little database that kind of tells you for how you incarnate and maybe why you incarnate. So if you've been living many lives before, and you will keep on living more lives until you learn the lessons, what you're here to learn, what you're here to do, and kind of the challenges that will help you transform and transcend into your highest potential, your highest purpose, etc. So in summary here to your question, the Gene Keys is really a transformational system compared to the human design. And it's an ongoing thing that you're living constantly. And Richard says that the power is really in contemplation, where you contemplate and reflect on a continuous basis on how your shadows is showing up in your life and how you can be conscious of that and try to, transform that into instead your gifts, your natural strengths. It's almost like journaling in a way, but you have the Gene Keys next to you and understanding all the context of you on a deeper level. And you journal and you contemplate and reflect on, okay, how was I potentially a bit triggered today? How was I potentially a bit worried or fearful or frustrated or jealous today? And oh yeah, that is my shadow, right? But actually, my truest self and the part of me that is more in alignment with me and my values is in my gift. And yeah, I would have liked to respond differently or behave differently here, or instead of being in that unconscious state, which is very fear-based, I go to a more conscious state, more related to love.
So if I get this correctly, the main difference between human design and Gene Keys is that human design is like your energetic blueprint, and then Gene Keys is your transformational blueprint?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. So I know that there is, like, you already mentioned quite a few things which, like, I think most people would not understand when you talk about like shadow, gift, all of these things. And I also know that there are 3 different sequences in Gene Keys, which is purpose, love, prosperity. Then when I looked into it, I also saw like activation, Venus, Pearl. So I'm like, oh my God, like what is this talking about? So can you maybe just like briefly walk us through like how it's actually structured, and when someone looks at their Gene Keys profile, what do they actually see? Because the only thing I see is like a bunch of bubbles, right? So can you maybe just like give us like a very simple breakdown of all of these different kind of terminologies?
Absolutely. So in Gene Keys in general, there are 64 different Gene Keys. But then when you go and get your profile, you will get 14 Gene Keys. And there will be 3 different sequences. You have the activation sequence, which is more about your dharma or your purpose, how you function, with what you're here to do, what you're here to learn, what your purpose is, and also how you radiate energy, how your energy works, like in human design, how your energy radiates out into the world, how people kind of interprets your energy, how they experience that, and how you also attract people and things because of that energy. So that is the activation sequence, kind of like activating your power, activating your purpose. And in there you have 4 different gene keys. And that will be different for everyone, right? Depending on your birth details, etc. Next, you have the Venus sequence, which is more about love, relationships, and your emotional patterns. That's where I talked about before, where you have, for example, an attraction sphere, how you attract people, relationships into your life. You have a IQ, intelligent quotient. You have an emotional quotient and a spiritual quotient, which are all those I mentioned between 0 to 7, 7 to 14, and 14 to 21 years old. How, your certain emotions and patterns are forming through those years as you're growing up. And then you also have a core wound, which is your biggest wound that has followed you, not only in this lifetime, but on a soul level in previous lifetimes as well. So I had one person, for example, who who thinks he has been I'd say it, sort of like a Egyptian pharaoh, where he had a lot of slaves, etc. And because of this, his core wound is that he was a ruler, he was a dictator, and he was not showing compassion and love towards any of these slaves, right? So the core wound is still there from a past lifetime, where now he wants to heal that core wound and do the opposite and be very of service orientation and very giving and very etc. etc. So that's the core wound. And yeah, that's the Venus sequence there in general. And then you have a final Pearl sequence, the third one, which is more about how you manifest abundance, wealth, and success. So everyone also has a unique way of manifesting your desires. We actually none of us really manifest the same way as everyone else, which was also new to me before I read the Gene Keys. I was like, oh, everyone is probably doing it like they say in the book, The Secrets, and etc. etc. and Joe Dispenza kind of style. But yeah, apparently it's more also. You have a unique way of manifesting, and that is also, of course, very interesting to learn about and see how that unfolds as you go forward in life.
So these are the 3 main sequences, right? And then within these, we also have additional information that guides us through to fully understand our blueprint. And then, so where does the shadow and the gift come into the picture here?
Yeah, so in every gene key, you have a shadow, gift, city. So to break it down once again, you have first the Venus sequence. There are 4 gene keys in there. You have the Venus sequence. There are 6 gene keys in there. And then you have the Pearl sequence. There are 4 gene keys in there, a total of 14. But in every gene key, you have a shadow, a gift, and a city. The shadow is just your triggers, your fear reactions, your self-sabotaging, unconscious patterns. Your gift then, on the other hand, is kind of exactly what it sounds like. It's your gift, it's your natural strength, your higher potential, which you obviously want to tap into. You want to tap into your higher potential, your full potential. And then the city is just more of it's nothing that you really become. It's more something that you can kind of tap into a little bit. It's like a state of being, a divine state of being. So, for example, one of your cities was perfection. And, at first, hearing that for the audience, perfection might sound like, oh, everything is perfect. But poetically, he was describing that in a way that perfection in that Siddhic state would be where you see perfection in all the small things, and you realize that even imperfection is perfection. That things, that systems and people that is not acting according to how you think it would be appropriate to act, even that is perfection. That there's a reason for everything, because everything has an opposite and equal reaction. If there was no fear in the world, it would be hard to know what love is, for example. If there was no darkness, it would be hard to know what light is. So in that sense, and the bigger picture, that is perfection. But that is not something you become. You Adam Haluska, doesn't become perfection, right? You just can tap into that state of being a little bit of understanding, there's beauty in the small things. There's beauty in everything. And if you can see it like that once in a while, you will be in a good place. You will have a lot of gratitude. You will have a lot of, emotions and kind of mindset that will be serving you well.
Well, for me, that was very interesting to hear that as well, because I do know that in certain things, like I want things to be perfect. And then I guess I was addressing like perfectionism. Like my understanding before the gene keys was that, let's say, it's coming from a wound, right? So there are different emotional wounds as well, as we are like programmed and subconsciously, like I'm trying to make everything perfect, which also can be an advantage, but a disadvantage at the same time. And I always thought it was coming from like wanna be more or wanna show up perfect, having a fear of judgment or like maybe disappoint someone, right? So is that like what is that? Is that for me like a shadow or a gift, or what is that for me?
Yeah, so breaking down that particular gene key for you. So you had a shadow of judgment in that gene key, and you had a gift of integrity, and the siddhi was perfection. So for people on the understanding the shadow pattern, then the fear reaction based pattern, sometimes unconscious, etc., that is you like judging situations, judging systems, judging people, which is obviously not a nice thing to do. You can transcend that into your gift being integrity. And integrity is more about yourself. Like as long as you are having integrity in alignment with your values, you're tapping into your gift, like your natural strength. And that is one reason, we have a podcast here. It's a lot about integrity, because you want to bring on guests that, whatever they are an expert in, you are truly interested in that topics, you want to learn about it, and you see value in it, and then you want to spread the message through the podcast, right? That is really tapping into the gift of integrity. And you can realize that, there's a big part of the world that still don't know about XYZ. They still don't know about gene keys, etc. But that is still perfection in a way, because because there's a large amount that don't know about this yet. There's still a gap to fill this, and that's why we can have this podcast in general, for example. That's why we can talk about this podcast, this topic, and it's valuable for people. So zooming out, you realize that there's perfection in the imperfect things. That's a quick, short example of your shadow, gift, and siddhi.
I think it kind of like creates a different kind of emotions in me. It's kind of like brings groundedness and clarity, that like, oh, okay, it's actually explained, and there is a way, but it also triggers me in a certain way. So it's like a very interesting emotional experience to learn this kind of details about yourself. But the moment is there, and you even start asking the questions, is this true? Do I feel it's true? And then you start thinking about things that you have never thought about before, right? So which is very much on the awareness stage. If I would like to bring that awareness and bring all of this knowledge into real life, how can someone actually work through like some of these gene keys and sequences?
No, like we all know, awareness is just the first step towards change, right? Towards transformation. So first having awareness of that gene key and what is your shadow, gift and city. Then the contemplation process starts where, as you keep on living life now, the next couple of weeks, months and years, you can contemplate here and there, reflect, journal on, okay, like when in my life, going back in time, have I been in a place of judgment where that usually led to negative things? Maybe I was judging my partner and we had a lot of fights and breakup and etc. Maybe I was judging my business partner or my employees or my friends, etc. And then you also contemplate on, oh, at what points in my life have I been in integrity, like fully in integrity, and how has that unfolded? And I would bet that if you think about a time of like, yeah, that was a year that I was truly in integrity. I was going with, I was only taking on clients that I truly enjoyed working with and I truly thought that I could help and bring value. And yeah, very likely you're going to see that there's a pattern there, that anything that you did out of integrity brought you a lot of good things, a lot of abundance and wealth and success and happiness, while being in a place of judgment didn't bring you any good. So that will be the process of contemplation, going back in the past, but also reminding yourself in the present as you try to keep on living life and make decisions going forward into the future.
So that's very interesting, because then it also helps me to understand, let's say that I find myself in a situation and I think a certain way, or I feel a certain way, or I even react or respond a certain way. And then after that, I can ask the question from myself, like, okay, am I actually acting out of fear or am I acting out of integrity? So in this way, in my case would be, let's say, like judgment or integrity, right? Mm-hmm. And then that kind of like brings me to the present moment to be an observer of myself. And then based on what you are saying, if I'm able to like move away from my shadow side and try to act in a present moment that's more in alignment with my gift, then that's what's going to bring me good stuff in life.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so based on that, you also mentioned that people manifest differently. Is this somehow like the link as well, the difference, how people manifest differently, or there's like other tools that we need to consider for like manifestation, or I just need to be aware that like I should not be acting out of my shadow side, I should be acting out of my gift side?
Yeah. So to clarify a little bit more, your gene key that we talked about now was in your activation sequence in the life's work sphere and gene key. So depending on where the gene key is placed, that will have a different meaning. So for you, that was about your life's work, meaning you want to have a career and what you do in life in terms of work, you want to tap into your integrity there. But then you might have in the Pearl sequence, which was about manifesting, right? One of the 4 gene keys in that sequence that might mean and tell you something different. So, going into same with Venus sequence, right? You can have a gene key in your emotional quotient sphere. So that means that whatever shadow you have in that particular gene key is more tied to your emotional wounds. And then a completely different shadow might be in your intelligent wound, and another one in a completely different area. So it all depends also where the gene key is placed. And like we said before, in the Pearl sequence you have 4 different gene keys.
And so within that, there's also then the shadow, the gift, and the city, and then maybe if that jinky is placed in the purpose or the activation, it gives me one piece of information. But let's say that, like, if I look at my prosperity sequence, then it's going to give me a different information. So is there a way that they are just going to contradict each other and they're just going to create confusion for me?
No, the opposite more, I would say. That they will very much go hand in hand. And as you go through all the sequences and all the gene keys in your profile, which I have done by now, it basically took me quite some time, many months, and getting, really at the depth of it. You realize that all of it is quite tied together and relating to each other, and it's building on each other as well. So it's almost, for example, that you have one gene key in the Venus sequence that is overlapping with a gene key in the Pearl sequence, and that is the core wound, it's called in Venus sequence, and it's called the vocation sphere in the Pearl sequence. And the reason for this is basically, if you don't heal your core wound, you won't be able to manifest effectively. So that is also one reason why it's very important that we kind of heal our emotional patterns and we get it back into alignment there, so we can then effectively become the creator of our own desired reality.
And as we were like going through my gene keys, is that you asked me first, what do you think your purpose is? Why do you think you are here? And I gave you an answer, right? And then what came back from the gene keys as well, it was phrased and worded differently, but was giving pretty much the exact same direction, right? So maybe I was just like a good guesser, but again, I felt that it was like coming from within. And then when I get that external validation as well, that like, okay, what you are feeling that you are doing is in alignment with your purpose, then that just like helped me to shed off all of this like doubt, right? So it was like a very nice confirmation and reassurance that, yeah, man, like you are on it. Like you are already living and embodying the purpose of your life. So it literally showed the purpose of my life. And that's kind of crazy.
It's crazy and it's an incredible feeling, because sometimes there are people like yourself who are able to articulate what they're kind of feeling inside in their intuition. What is their purpose? Other times there might be people who's not able to articulate it at all, but once they hear it from the gene keys or they read it, it just hits a nerve that, yeah, wow, this just feels so right. Something that I'm always wondered about, or I thought that it could be possible that that might be my purpose or might be how I work and function. But I didn't like fully trust in it, or I couldn't fully make sense of it, right? But that's the beauty of the gene keys. It's just like both intellectually makes sense, which people like you and me like, that's analytical and maybe even skeptic at nature. Emotionally it hits as well, but also on a more, I don't know, spiritual level, it just, yeah, it feels right in the intuition as well. And confirmation on all those three areas is really nice to gain from the gene keys.
And you mentioned that everybody manifests differently. Can you give a couple of examples? Because I'm completely like bombarded by all of these manifestation gurus on Instagram as well. And then I'm like, okay, so that's fantastic, but what do you even mean? So when you say that people manifest differently, what do you have in mind?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways, right? There's literally 64 different human archetypes then. So one could say definitely 64 different ways of manifesting. And yeah, depending on where that gene key is in your different, the 4 different spheres in your pearl sequence, and also depending on, if you actually healed quite a bit of your core wound in your Venus sequence, there will be different answers, different results there. But as an example for myself, I think, like I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, that there were many years that I was more, or at least the whole year of 2023, where I was forcing things, even though I didn't feel excited about what I was doing. And was I able to manifest much more success in my business? No, it went the opposite way. But as soon as I went out of my shadow of superficiality, meaning I'm doing things that is not in alignment with me, right? I'm putting on some kind of mask in some kind of way, telling me maybe I'm following a blueprint of success that is, based on social conditioning, that is not my definition of success. Yeah, as soon as I got out of that shadow of superficiality and into my gift of self-assurance, that I'm more self-assured of what do I truly want? What is truly important for me? Oh yeah, it's not so much about the external freedom. It's actually more about an internal emotional state for me, would be what I would say if I ask myself that I want to feel relaxed. I want to feel very present in my days. I want to feel like I have the freedom to go with my days wherever my creativity wants to take me. Like that is success for me, not any material success. So when I went away from like this material success definition and into my more internal state, what I'm desired, how I want to feel, things shift a lot more. And yeah, I'm probably better able to manifest from such a place than the previous old one.
You mentioned again something that I felt can be like very triggering for some people, especially if we talk about like high achievers, that sometimes you need to slow down and then you need to take a step back. Yes. And then like that's probably like the most difficult thing someone can do when they just want to go, right?
Yeah.
So this is why it's important to understand how you operate and how you create the reality around you. So you know, like, okay, like I actually need to slow down, because your rational mind is going to tell you like, no, you can do one more thing. Like, oh no, like not this time. Like, oh, like, do you want to be average? Like, do you want to be like everybody else? No, like put in the work, go for a run, sit down, do the work from morning until evening, which works for some. But then what I understand, it doesn't work for others. So that's why like you need to understand how you are operating as well. So when we talk about, let's say, some of the typical patterns that high achieving entrepreneurs, leaders, managers, founders, people like us have in common, which is like, could be like imposter syndrome, could be self-sabotage, could be emotional disconnection, could be burnout, all of these things. So how do you think that the gene keys can actually help someone to spot some of these drivers that drive these patterns? Like, can we see all of this in the gene keys?
Yes, we can see a lot of it. And I just want to start to say that, trust me guys, like I have been one of these people who has been hustling and working hard and having a very hard time getting out of that type of mindset, thinking that slowing down is not going to bring me anything good. But yeah, it's just like, like the farmers, with the seasons of spring, summer, winter and fall. You can't put the seeds in winter, can you? Like no matter how many seeds you put in the winter, it's not gonna grow. You will have to do that in in another time in fall, after you have been harvesting in the summer. So likewise, in a year as an entrepreneur, you can't be going full pedal to the metal the whole year. There are certain periods where you can dedicate to putting in a lot of work. Then there's other periods where you need to dedicate some time to just being creative, and another period you need to dedicate time to rest and recovery and rejuvenating. And I think that is the maturity cycle of an entrepreneur. in the beginning, for the first couple years, you hustle, you work hard, and you gain your stripes that way. And after a while, you learn the next phase that, oh, I can actually start working smart. It's way more, it's way more useful to work smart rather than hard. That I can achieve things in a 4-hour deep focus work sessions per day compared to 8 to 10 hours of being, just at 70% capacity and being quite drained and exhausted, and good ideas are not coming. Creativity is not coming. Creative solutions are not coming. So that's just one way of thinking about it. Now with the gene keys, once again, like we said, the awareness of all your shadow patterns is a big that's a great start as a first step. And then, contemplating on a continuous basis on how those are showing up, and try to remain in those shadow patterns in a shorter period of time, right? Be in those less often. So I don't know if anyone can relate on, let's say you have a full day's work as an entrepreneur. If you are having a relationship that is going to shit at the same time, you're feeling mad and frustrated, you haven't exercised in the gym and you're not feeling good energetically with your health, maybe you've been eating shit as well, bad sleep, what's the chances that that day is going to be a productive day? It's not going to be one of those most productive days, that's for sure, right? You might be able to get some done and get by, but it's not going to be one of your most productive days. So that's just likewise the analogy.
I would say that I think like a previous version of myself would have said like, oh, I can turn this around. Yeah. And then like, I'm in control. I'm going to push through.
Yes. And you can keep on pushing and pushing, but if you're running up the wrong mountain, then it doesn't matter how fast you're running.
Oh, that's a huge one. And just on the pushing side, I know exactly where it leads because I lived it myself as well. When you just push, guess what? Eventually life is going to stop you, my friend. And then it's going to, like, if you don't want to slow down every once in a while and reassess and spend time with yourself and focus on regeneration and recovery so you can show up the best way possible when you are actually working, life is going to smack you in the face and it's going to give you something that's going to slow you down. And you don't know exactly how it's going to come out. Is it going to be in a form of an illness? Is it going to be a loss of a friend or a family member? You don't know. But I guarantee it's going to happen.
I back that up. I guarantee that too. I've been living it as well.
But it's kind of crazy because as we are in it and we just kind of like operate on autopilot, we think that we are like consciously making those decisions, but many of our decisions are actually coming from a subconscious place. And it's very hard to spot where exactly I am. If you haven't been through that, you don't have the experience, so you don't have that external reference point that specifically pinpoints some of those patterns that you have maybe been displaying right now. And it's just going to come with experience, or like this is where I also see like tools like the Gene Keys can actually help me to understand and be more aware of my subconscious patterns. When we talked about the wounds, you mentioned intellectual, emotional, and soul level wounds. So you said that soul level wounds appear or form from the moment we were born until the age of 7. Then after that, emotional wounds from 7 to 14, and then the intellectual from 14 to 21. I thought that our like emotional wounds actually form from the moment we were born until we are 7. And then the soul level wounds would just be like the natural foundation. So how does this work exactly?
so it's called the spiritual quotient, not the soul level wound, but yeah, the spiritual wound, the spiritual quotient. So yeah, from the moment you're born to you're 7 years old, it's more about how I guess the energies in your surroundings are affecting you. How you experience and interpret things, more in your intuition or your energetically from those first 7 years. And then once you grow up to be 7, 8, 9 years old and up to 14, you get a bit more sense of how you work emotionally. Whether you got hugs from your parents, love from your parents, how you felt safe, how you felt emotionally by meeting your classmates, and yeah, more emotions are coming into the picture at that point, right? There might be, curiosity, it might be jealousy, it might be feeling worried. More emotions coming into the picture at 7 to 14. And then at 14 to 21, now you're starting to become a little bit more intellectual, because you're learning new things. Now you need to, take a decision of like, what are you going to study? Where are you going to go to college? How are you going to interact with the friends and people around you? There's more intellectual, mind-related decisions when you get older there from 14 to 21. So yeah, I don't know. I think for me it kind of makes sense that it's more energetically based from 0 to 7, more emotionally based 7 to 14, and more intellectually based 14 to 21, and how these different wounds are taking form for you.
Yeah, and all of this stuff kind of like lives in our subconscious. And most of the stuff we are not even aware of. And those are the forces that drive our actions in the real world and our behaviors as well. And by just like shifting that attention and being aware of some of this that's kind of like happening in the background can literally shift our default behaviors as well. So I think like this is where I find it's like very interesting.
Totally. Whatever area in your life, like you say, these are all patterns that have been shaped unconsciously as you've grown up there. And it's way deeper than many of us are aware of, right? That is the work that we've been doing, whether we're calling it shadow work, nervous system regulation, attachment theories, or whatever you want to call it. It's all related to these same things, these unconscious patterns that makes us behave and show up in the world the way we show up. It's what makes us feel safe or not safe, good enough or not good enough, loved or not loved, and seen and heard. So yeah, it's very important to be aware of.
Yeah, let's take also a more practical example as well. So let's say that someone finally discovers their gift. How can they bring that into their business, relationships, or just in their decision-making process? So I think the question is that how can someone lead their business from their gift and not from their shadow?
Example that comes to mind for myself, I'm thinking about my radiance sphere in the activation sequence for me. So that one is gene key 37, and it has the shadow of weakness, gift of equality, and then city of tenderness. So my gift of equality there can be used in business in the way that I know that my energy will radiate well towards others, clients, or to be maybe clients, in a way that I need to meet them with equality. I shouldn't come across in the way that I'm better, my strategy is the only strategy, my life experiences is the right one, yours is not. If I can come across with an energy of more equality, that we're equals, and I can learn from you, you can learn from me, then that would radiate better. That will attract someone better. If I'm coming across more genuine and authentic, that would come across way better for the other person energetically. Probably like on an unconscious level, because usually these days it's sometimes hard to know why we like a person, right? Like, why do I like you and you like me? Well, the Gene Keys could explain that, like, we have an energy in each one of us that is, yeah, quite incongruence. Because you are a lot about integrity, and I'm also a lot about being authentic and genuine. That is what's most important to me, basically.
So the example that you give, is that specific to you, or that's just like generally true?
And
Because
that's
let's say
specific to me. Yeah.
that's specific to you. But for example, like if I look at that example, like yes, like coming across more collaborative is going to get me further than being, let's say, like an extremely like, you know, aggressive and dominant person in that conversation. So can you give maybe like another example as well for how can someone turn their gift into leading their business out of alignment rather than from fear?
I think the best way to describe it is, I don't really have another Gene Key gift in mind now on top of my head, but you know,
Maybe another person or someone that you have interacted with and you saw that like that person managed to fully embody their gift.
for example, everyone is not supposed to be a leader. Some people are truly meant to be more of a supporter, one could say. Instead of the person that is the one wolf pack leader, another person is actually supposed to be, you know, the second wolf or the third one that is more supportive. Or one is supposed to be in the back. And if one takes that role, that they take that role in alignment with how their Gene Key works and how the gift works, that would bring them a lot more success in business. So not everyone is supposed to be a business consultant one-on-one. Other people are actually supposed to be something completely different that is in a group or in a bigger community, or so there's different nuances. That's probably the best way I could put it.
It kind of like raises another question that we already have like an idea what purpose could look like or success could look like for someone. And we also see the blueprint that they used in order to get there. And then they embody a certain type of persona. But the question is still that people should be asking, is that success to me? So this is where we go back to like, is the mountain the right mountain that I will try to climb? And then the way to get there, is this the right path to actually get there? Because based on this, everybody works differently. And then maybe my path and your path has like nothing in common, and we have to take very different kind of steps. And me following your steps is actually not going to be working for me. You following my steps is not going to be working for you. So we are diverse individuals and everybody is unique in this sense. So we need to understand what steps are the right steps that are meant for us and right for us. And last but not least, what kind of role do I want to play in my role on this planet? Because now I think what's being sold, which I think is very attractive and it's very true, that if you want to be free, then be an entrepreneur, run your own business, build your own team, make this much money, all of that. And that's great. That's very attractive. But yes, not everybody is meant to do that. It's not going to be suitable for everyone. And if that's what's suitable for you, then amazing. Yeah, great. Find the people who have done it, learn from them, follow their footsteps, and try to see that what are the kind of steps that's going to be helping you to make that kind of progress to reach that mountain. So I think like, overall what it does is that it really breaks it down for you to fully understand how you operate.
Yeah.
and you should just not take on everybody else's advice and like, yes, that's 100% the blueprint I have to force myself to do, because without that, I'm never going to accomplish what I want to accomplish.
Yeah, that's a really great way to put it. It's not a generic blueprint for success. This is truly understanding that everyone, literally everyone, is unique, and that is a good thing. That, you know, no one is ever gonna say in the future, if you're into the jinkies, of like, oh, I'm different, and that's not a good thing. No, that is a great thing. You just need to know how are you different, and then, you know, go with your strengths, because that's what you're here to do in the first place. You're here to learn who you are, how you function, and yeah, flow with those strengths, because that will ultimately give you the most abundance and success, and it will also bring you the most joy, fulfillment, etc. That feels great for you.
Well, I can totally see how then this tool could be super attractive for so many people to dive into and try and get readings and understand their jinkies and sequences and shadows and gifts and all of that. But I also assume that there is so many mistakes as well that people make when they dive into jinkies. So what would be some of the most common mistakes people make when they start working with jinkies for themselves?
I think one of the best place to start is having quality questions. Like, it's like, why do you want to do the jinkies, or what do you want to find out? Because, you know, as you and I started with the reading, I asked you, you know, what would make this a great session? What would make you leave this session and feel like you really gotten something out of it? And your answers could have been multiple things, right? It could have been, oh, I want to know my purpose, or I want to know what would be good options for me as a career or work. I would want to know how I manifest. I would know how I want to fix my relationships, find love. I want to heal my traumas. There's so many different areas, and it's very beautiful with the jinkies that they can tackle a lot of those. But obviously, start with one at a time, because if you go with everything, it might be overwhelming. Start with one thing at a time. I recommend activation sequence. It's a good place to start. Go to genekeys.com, fill in your birth details, get a free profile. Yeah, dig into a little bit with the activation sequence, and yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey that is very exciting as you get to know yourself more and more, and you will get those aha moments, and it will light you up, and it will bring you further and further and further into alignment. And yeah, it's an amazing journey. And of course, if you don't want to do it completely yourself, you want to have some support, find someone like myself, some kind of coach or expert in the matter who's already been through that journey for themselves and can maybe support you with any questions you have or any directions that you're wondering about.
Amazing. Amazing. As we are coming to close to the end of this session, I prepared a couple of fire questions for you. So quick questions, quick answers.
Ready?
Are you ready? Okay, amazing. So first question, what is one gene key or insight that has changed your life?
My life's work, Gene Key, knowing that superficiality. First, I read that as in like, oh, I hate superficial conversations and when people are acting as something they're not. And then the deeper reflection was like, oh, maybe I'm not as authentic as I think. And then I looked into my social media content, and I was also talking about like business strategies and stuff like that. And then I also realized that, oh, I'm not multidimensional here, because I think that I need to only cover one topic on my social media, because that is what everyone is saying. You can't talk about everything you're interested about. But then because of that gene key, I go like, huh, that is my gift, being self-assurance that I can talk about whatever I'm interested in. And if I'm doing so and embodying that, I'm probably going to be attracting the right people into my life, because they go, you know what, I've been thinking about doing the same thing, but I had the fear something coming in the way, and I don't want to do that. So that is one thing that helped me a lot, that, okay, be in my presence, being self-assured, and go with that.
Next question. If you could get everyone to understand just one thing about their existence, what would it be?
It's not by coincidence, it's all by design, it's all happening for a reason, and you can find out that reason, the map to your life, through the gene keys.
Which brings me to another question, which I don't have it listed here, but I thought about it before. If it's already there and everything is kind of like by design and predetermined, do you believe in free will?
I believe in free will, for sure. I think it's a nuance in the way of, I think many people or many souls has been living many lives before. So even though you're here to do a specific thing, or you're here to learn a specific thing, or you're here to, you have a specific purpose on a soul level, doesn't mean that you have free will along the way to go about it in whatever way you'd like, or whatever timing you'd like. It's kind of going like, hey Adam, now we identified the correct mountain for you. How do you want to climb it? Do you want to run? Do you want to put on a pair of boots? Do you want a pair of skis? Do you want a pair of motorbike? Or do you want to climb? It's up to you. Now you know your mountain. And maybe you never want to start climbing the mountain. You start climbing the mountain, not in this life, not in next life, like in the third life from now, because you're just not ready yet. You're not ready to want to transcend the mountain. So you have free will in that way.
Oh, that's very interesting the way you put it. I love that. What is your number one personal non-negotiable when it comes to staying in peak performance?
My number one non-negotiable, I would have to say sleep, I think. I used to go far into, performance habits, whether it's eating, journaling, ice cold baths, exercise, meditation, whatever it might be. But I always go like, which one of these habits is the most important? I would say sleep, because that's the foundation to everything.
The more we speak about this, the clearer it becomes to me that what works for someone doesn't work for someone else. So this is why it's very important to do the right tools that's actually working for you. So in your case, it's going to be sleep. For someone else, it's going to be to go to the gym and have another session. So yeah, very cool. What's one belief you had to let go of to step into your next level?
The limiting belief that I thought I was in control of life. And I realized, through some spiritual experiences and gene keys and other things, that not as in control as I think. Back to the other thing though, that we have free will, but there is a certain mountain that is probably picked for me, and now it's actually exciting to think about how I'm gonna transcend that one. And ironically, that is way more freeing than people think. One might go like, oh, you don't have control, that's not freedom. But there is freedom in the way of thinking about it, that no matter what happens to you, no matter what circumstances, no matter what life is throwing at you, you can figure it out, and you will. You believe in yourself, you have that capacity, you have that capability. That is freeing. So in a sense, why do you want control in the first place? You want control because on the opposite side, you're not believing in yourself. You're worried. So when I heard that, oh, I only want this control, and I'm putting out all of these strategies because in the depth of things, I don't feel completely safe and I'm having all of these coping mechanisms to try to gain back control and safety. But when I realized that was a limiting belief, that relax, you're safe, you're good, you're capable. Doesn't matter what happens. Trust in the unknown. That is very freeing.
Such a great answer. And it also deeply resonates with me as well. I think there's a journey to actually start trusting and letting go of control. Because naturally, I think we have our tendency just to like try to control as much as we can. And the last question, if all of the contacts on your social media were deleted and you could only follow one person for your health and well-being, who would you follow?
Well, Richard Rudd is one of the top of my mind. I also like Naval Ravikant. Yeah, there are these people who I think has experienced a lot of success in their life, monetarily and that kind of stuff, but realized along the way that that is way less important. And now they're more, yeah, I guess more following the Dharma, more following their purpose, and they've understood that there's more to life than what meets the eye, meaning like there's way more out there than what you can see and experience with your five senses. And not to go too deep into this, but you know, I'm definitely a consciousness explorer, where it's super exciting to understand how the universe operates and how, you know, it's not really about this third dimension Earth school, but there's more of a fifth dimension as well, where we have six senses, and yeah, there's a lot of woo-woo stuff that is actually, yeah, seemingly quite real. And, yeah. Hope that answers the question.
It does. Like Naval is also definitely on top of my list as well. Like I can thank him a lot for everything what he has done over the past decade or so since I've been following him. Well, thanks so much. This has been great. Very excited to see where Jinkies is going to be in the next couple of years, where Jinkies is going to take you as a human, as an entrepreneur, as someone who is also helping others. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adam. I appreciate being here, and this was a joy.